Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the November 2025 OC HMIS user meeting. If you haven't already done so, please enter your name and your agency's name in the chat box so we can take attendance. On the agenda today, we have our HMIS participating agencies schedule, HMIS data entry and performance impact, privacy and personal identifying information guidance, HMIS client record sharing decision pathways, an audit reminder, client record request form, inactive users in HMIS, system performance measures and longitudinal system analysis, annual performance report, project performance report, training and resources, our survey, holiday, and then Q&A, and then office hours. For the Q&A during the meeting, if you have a question, to better organize questions the HMIS Help Desk receives during the meeting, our team recommends that you submit your questions through the Q&A option. We request that you keep your questions general and related to the topics we discussed in the meeting. Agency-specific questions is best supported through our HMIS Help Desk ticket submission, so our team is able to investigate and provide assistance for your request. Here is our HMIS participating agency schedule. This is, and I understand that it's very hard to see this, it is a schedule of all of our reporting and requirements for the year for HMIS. So we have our HUD required reports, our Orange County required reports, Orange County requirements such as the agency audit and the once-year HMIS user recertification, and then our HMIS lead meetings such as our user meeting and data performance management meeting. To highlight things that are going on in our schedule, we are currently in our HMIS audit season. The scheduling is between July and December, so we're coming to the end of our audits at this point. For project performance corrections, we have transitional housing that will be added to your agency's Dropbox shortly. If you don't have a Goal 10 spreadsheet in your Dropbox, your agency did not have any exit data during the reporting period of October 1st, 2023 to September 30th, 2025. Please review the PPR webinars for additional information about running and reviewing PPR's goals 1 through 10 for your agency's program. So we are getting into a reminder section of our slides. These were slides that we presented last quarter, and we will be presenting quarterly as a reminder to the entire community. First, we'll be going over HMIS data entry and performance impact. Data entered into HMIS is used to understand the characteristics of the people served through the OC HMIS system of care and how effectively clients are being served through this system of care. Federal and state level. Data is aggregated for Orange County and submitted to inform how effectively our COC is addressing homelessness as a system of care. Results of these reports impact the amount of funding our COC will receive from these entities. Local level. In addition to reviewing data at the county level, data is also aggregated at the project level to inform how effective specific projects are at serving clients. Local funders use this data to determine which agencies and projects they want to fund. This means that accurate and complete data entry into HMIS is critical to ensure that your agency and our COC as a whole continues to receive the funding needed to address homelessness in our community. Data entry and best practices. Search for client records in HMIS prior to entering new clients to avoid duplicate profiles for the same client. Confirm name spelling and review client documentation if possible to reduce data entry errors for name, date of birth, and Social Security. Enter data into HMIS directly instead of collecting data on paper form. Run data quality and performance reports at least quarterly to correct errors and identify areas for additional training. Review data quality and performance correction files sent from the HMIS team and update HMIS as needed. Review the knowledge base articles and training materials to understand how to collect specific data elements. And again, this is another section that we are reminding everyone that we are presenting these particular set of slides quarterly. For privacy and personal identifying information guidance. As a reminder about client privacy and personal identifying information, best practices for sharing clients' information. Users should only use the client's unique identifier to identify clients in correspondence. This includes HMIS tickets, reports, work emails, and work-related instant messaging apps. If users must share additional client information such as name, date of birth, or Social Security number in a report or correspondence, please use an encrypted email or password-protected file on your network. If you're sending a report to HMIS, please use your agency's Dropbox. And we do have a knowledge base article about sending this information to the HMIS help desk. Ways of sharing client information. If you need to share a screenshot to demonstrate the issue you're having in a ticket, provide the client's ID and in the screenshot only share the relevant information. In the first example, all client information is being shared. Do not share this type of screenshot in tickets or emails. You want to be careful that you only capture the information that is relevant. So as you can see in this screenshot, we have not only the client's name, but also the household member's name, which we do not want shared in a screenshot. In this second example, all the client information was erased using Microsoft Paint. This is an acceptable screenshot to share via a ticket or email. As you can see, the client's name was removed and also the household members' names were approved. We recommend if you are going to be sharing a large screenshot like this, where it is encompassing client information, that before you attach it to an email or a ticket, that you review the screenshot again with new eyes and make sure that any client identifying information has been removed. If you notice that something is being shared that shouldn't, please adjust the screenshot and then take a look again to make sure that all of the information regarding client name, Social Security number, and date of birth, excuse me, date of birth has been removed. In the third example, the screenshot is only taken of the relevant information for the service. No client information is visible in this screenshot. So again, this is an acceptable screenshot. We recommend that you provide the client ID in the ticket or email so that you can reference the information that is relevant to the screenshot. Their method for sharing is the direct link for the client. So you don't need to be concerned about accidentally sharing client information in the screenshot. The client's profile, all the programs, services, assessments, and other items in HMIS have a unique URL that is used to load that screen. In these examples are all for the same client, which contains the client's unique identifier listed here. The first URL is the client's profile screen. The second is the enrollment screen for the client. The third is the service that was provided during the client's program enrollment. And finally, this is the last URL is the exit screen for the client. So as you can see, this points directly to a screen where you may have an issue. And you can provide this URL to us in a ticket or email, and this will take us directly to the screen where the information can be found, where you may be having some functionality issues or need some assistance. Again, this is probably the best way to share information because you don't have to worry about modifying a screenshot or ensuring that all of the client information has been removed via Microsoft Paint. Amy?
Hey, Diana. Good morning, everybody. The OCHMIS team has updated the following knowledge base articles with a new client record sharing decision pathways graph. The following knowledge base articles have been updated: accessing and completing the ROI fields of client records, refusing, revoking consent to share protected personal information knowledge base article, and the adding client profiles to HMIS knowledge base article. The decision pathway describes how to handle HMIS record privacy settings based on the client's decision to have either a public or private record. You can also review the HMIS client privacy and data ethics training for more information. Now let's go ahead and walk through the pathway together. The first step of the decision pathway will always be to search for an existing client record. If the client does not have an existing record, follow the pathway in orange. You will need to create a client record and review the consent to share protected personal information form with the client during intake. If the client agrees to sign the consent, continue following the pathway in orange. Set the ROI status to yes, and save the client record. If the client does not want a public record, follow the pathway in yellow. Enter no in the ROI section of the record, then navigate to the privacy settings and set the record to private. Now, let's review the pathway for clients who have existing records. If the client does have an existing record, review the privacy forms and the client's ROI preferences during intake. If the client still consents to having a public record, follow the pathway in blue. Proceed to program enrollment. You do not need to update or obtain a new ROI for the client unless their previous ROI has expired or they now revoke their consent. If the client revokes their consent now, follow the pathway in green. When a client revokes their consent, your next step depends upon whether more than one agency has entered data into the record at any point. If the other agencies have data in the record, follow the dark green pathway. Have the client sign the revocation of consent and upload that to the client's files. Set the previous ROI date to end and add a new ROI set to no. The agency's HMIS administrator will submit an anonymization request to the help desk. Please do not attach the revocation of consent form to the ticket. The HMIS help desk will anonymize the client's record and notify all agencies with historical data within the record. If no other agencies have data in the record, follow the mint green pathway instead. You can upload the signed revocation of consent to the client's files, set the previous ROI date to end, and add a new ROI set to no, and then set the record to private. Please review the knowledge base articles linked under the client record sharing decision pathway linked in the Google document within the chat. (2025) Agency Audit. We are coming to the end of the audit season, so thank you to all the agencies who have already participated and have provided good feedback to our team. If your agency is in the process of scheduling your agency audit, please be aware that with the upcoming holidays, events, and reporting, it is important to confirm a meeting date in advance. If your agency has not received a ticket to schedule an audit, we will be sending those requests out shortly.
Thank you, Amy. Rachel?
Happy fall, y'all. We wanted to take some time this morning to review some key components of the new client record request process. We're going to go ahead and start with the client record request form. This form is used when a client wants access to data in their HMIS record that the submitting agency does not have access to. Here are next steps based on the scenario that your agency may encounter when supporting a client to receive their OC/HMIS records. It is advised that agencies review the client record request KB for additional information and to have an open discussion with the client on the data that they would like to receive. Here is the first example. Client is enrolled at Agency B and wants their data that was entered in by Agency B. Agency B has access to pull their agency data to share with the client. The next example, client is enrolled at Agency B and wants their data that was entered by Agency B and their entire enrollment history for agencies A to Z. Agency B does not have access to pull other agency data. Agency B will review the client record request form with the client and assist with submitting the form on behalf of that client. Next slide, please. When reviewing HMIS data with clients in person, agency admins are expected to follow these practices. Please verify the client's identity. Ensure that any meeting place is private, where the discussion or information cannot be overheard by others. Explain each file and what information is collected. If a client requests a revision or revisions to data, please follow the client data revisions section on that KB. If printed copies were made, please ensure to shred those documents after the client review. For additional details, please see the client record request KB. Next slide, please. The client records reports are files from reports that the HMIS team will provide to the agency admin after the client record request form is submitted. This is to be reviewed with the client. The report may include the following based on what the client has requested to review. This can include client profile and contact information, enrollment history, release of information, client documentation, responses on client assessments, services, public alerts and locations, coordinated entry data, and any CES-related data.
Thank you, Rachel. Michaela?
And then Diana, could I share a note before we move forward to the next topic?
Sure.
Just wanted to note within our KB, we do have a note to share with participating agencies that case notes are to be shared at the discretion of each participating agency. So you can only share your own agency's case notes. So we do recommend each agency's reviewing your agency internal policy regarding that. And if you don't have a policy yet, we do recommend creating a policy and protocol around sharing case notes. Thank you, Diana.
Michaela?
Thank you, Diana. Inactive users in HMIS. Clarity automatically locks users' accounts after a period of inactivity of more than 60 days. Users will receive a notification 2 calendar days prior to their account being locked. It is recommended that the user sets a calendar reminder to prompt them to log in once per month. Once a user's account is locked, an agency admin will need to submit a ticket to the HMIS help desk to reset that user's training materials for reactivation. Those users will then need to retake the training courses that correspond to their access role as well as the HMIS skills tests. Please see the KB article to determine which courses are needed per access role. Inactive users in HMIS continued. If users at your agency were locked out during the recertification task, it is because it has not yet been completed. These users will need to retake the HMIS Part 1 and Part 2 training courses, in addition to the skills test, to have their accounts reactivated. Agency administrators, or AAs, can run the Agency Active Users Report to see a list of users that have inactive counts within their agency. If you see a user missing from the list, their user may be locked or inactive. Please submit an HMIS help desk for additional support. The report pathway would be the Launchpad, reports, data analysis, user management, and agency active users. The agency active users report has a new update that allows you to see the staff's last visited date. Agency administrators and program managers can now review and support their team with these reminders.
Sorry about that, Michaela. I believe you have a demo, correct?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen.
When you arrive to your Clarity homepage, you want to start by starting at the Launchpad. So you'll go ahead and select the Launchpad. From the Launchpad, you would select Reports. Once you arrive at the report page, you want to select the Data Analysis tab at the top right, and then select the Orange County Training System Reports. Once you select the agency active users, a report will populate in which you can add in the agency's name. For example, we'll be using the OC Training Agency, and then we'll go ahead and run the report. So for example, for the last visited date, we added a new field where you're now able to see the last that a user has logged in. So for the first example, the user hasn't logged in since September 2nd. Since that is outside of our 60-day window, the user would have to recomplete the HMIS Part 1 and Part 2 training. The reason that we added this field is, for example, if a user wants to see, hey, when is the last time that I logged in? An agency administrator will be able to run the report to say your last login was September 2nd, in which you can already determine, okay, this user would need to recomplete their trainings But for example, if the user logged in last October 28th, then they would not need to retake the training since it is still within that 60-day window. So just wanting to inform you that we have added a new field, and we hope that, you use this to remind users that you're coming across your 60-day window. Please just log in. We also recommend that the user logs in at least once a month or sets a reminder for once a month to prevent this as well. Okay, Diana.
Thank you, Michaela. Let me go ahead and share my screen again. Hugo?
So Diana, for this one, I'm going to
Oh, sorry
over.
about that.
No worries, no worries. System performance measures, SPM, and longitudinal system analysis, LSA. Longitudinal System Analysis, LSA. The LSA is a report submitted by each COC on an annual basis and includes demographic, performance, and household composition information, as well as patterns of system use. The LSA from each COC is consolidated to create the AHAR that is submitted to Congress. System Performance Measure, or SPM. The System Performance Report analyzes the performance of safe haven, street outreach, emergency shelter, transitional housing, and permanent supportive housing. Rapid rehousing and other permanent housing. Project types in the Orange County COC that participate in HMIS. Our HMIS team wanted to share the overview of the system performance measures and the longitudinal system analysis again as the federal reporting season has started. Please review the September 2025 HMIS report office hours materials that covers the SPM and LSA corrections. The following timeline is specific to LSA, but during the meeting, our team will also review SPM and data corrections as all data rolls into the federal reporting. HDX 2.0 officially opens November 10th for our HMIS team to start the initial upload. From November 13th to the 15th, we ask that our HMIS participating partner agencies support with data corrections and reviewing warning flags to share an explanation. Our HMIS team will also reach out to schedule one-on-one time with agencies to conduct a deeper dive into the errors and flags and discuss next steps to process the corrections. During December 2nd through the 12th, if there are any additional pending corrections, our team will send out another round of corrections and flags. If HUD TA requests for additional information, our HMIS team will reach out to agencies during December 22nd to the 31st as needed to request additional support with LSA warning flag explanations. Our HMIS team will aim to prepare to submit the LSA by January 5th.
Thank you, Michaela. Hugo?
Good morning, everyone. Today I'll begin by talking about the annual performance report. All agencies that receive COC funding are required to submit an APR electronically to HUD every operating year. The APR is submitted through HUD's SAGE HMIS reporting repository. The APR is comprised of a series of tables with questions about service levels and outcomes for COC funded projects. The final report should be submitted as a single zip file that contains each report question as a separate CSV file. Agency administrators should run the HMS data quality report in preparation for the APR to preemptively identify any data quality problems. In addition, the APR submission preparation dashboard should also be run to obtain granular information about problematic enrollments. In addition, our team also wanted to go over some commonly seen errors within the APR. Next slide, please, Diana. Annual assessment errors. Annual assessments for clients who are enrolled in a project for more than 364 days are calculated using the head of household's project start date, otherwise known as the anniversary date. All household members inherit the active head of household's anniversary date, even if they join the enrollment after the head of household's project start date. As such, all household members must have an annual assessment completed within 30 days of the project anniversary date. If we take the example on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see that this example household has three clients. Client A, the head of household, whose project start date was November 1st, 2024. Client B, the spouse, whose project start date was February 1st, 2025. And client C, the child, whose project start date was also February 1st, 2025. The anniversary date for this household is November 1st until they are all exited. In 2025, annual assessments should be completed for all household members within 30 days of November 1st, 2025, even though client B and C were added to the household much later on. Next slide, please. Sex data element errors. Starting on October 1st, 2025, HMS participating agencies are expected to collect data for the 4.21 sex data element for all new project enrollments. Any clients whose sex data element was not collected will appear with a data not collected error within the APR. Clients with an active project enrollment prior to October 1st, 2025 are not required to have their sex data element collected. If a data not collected error appears for these clients, agencies should reach out to their funder or HUD representative for additional guidance on best data collection practices. Users should also review the HMS data collection requirements for a transition of fiscal year 2026, HMS Data Standards Guide for additional information regarding sex data elements. Next slide, please. Child errors. The following should be taken into consideration for child clients as their users review their APRs, such as client ages into adulthood. Child clients who turn 18 while enrolled in a project must have an income and sources record created for them upon their 18th birthday, even if the client is not receiving any income. Number two, approximate date homelessness started. Child clients born after the head of household's approximate date of homelessness started do not inherit that information from the head of household. An explanation for this error should be provided within the APR narrative. And number three, chronic homeless status. Child clients who were not present with the head of household at project start do not inherit a chronic homeless status. An explanation for this error should be provided within the APR narrative. Next slide. And finally, resources. For additional information regarding the APR, users can reference our running a CSV export and APR chronic homelessness status for children KB articles. To run the APR submission preparation dashboard, users can navigate to reports, then data analysis, then built-in reports, and finally the APR submission preparation dashboard. To run the HMS data quality report, users can navigate to reports, then report library, then HUD reports, then HMS data quality report. And
Right, we're
now,
gonna, oh, go ahead, Hugo.
go ahead, Diana.
We're going to be doing an APR submission preparation dashboard demo. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen so Hugo can share his screen.
Right. Just to confirm, Diana, can you see my screen right now? I should be on the OC HMIS training site.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Great. So I want to begin by going over the pathway that everyone can use to find this specific report. The first thing that you will do is navigate to the Launchpad icon in the upper right-hand side of the screen. And then from there, click on the reports icon. From here, you will switch over from the report library tab to the data analysis tab. And then from here, you will expand the caret icon under the built-in report section, where you can see the APR submission preparation dashboard. And then from here, you can hit the run icon to load this report. For the purposes of this example, I've already preloaded this report. So if we switch over to this page, you will see the APR submission preparation dashboard. This dashboard does have a couple of filters that you can use to help narrow down search results if you would so choose to. For example, you can search within a specific reporting period. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'll be doing within the last 12 months. Agencies can also filter for a specific program. For example, I've chosen the OC Training Agency's COC funded permanent supportive housing training project. And finally, agencies could also filter for a specific project type, such as transitional housing, street outreach services only, etc., etc. When you load this report, you will see that it is contained within a series of tiles, which go over very common data quality errors that our users can encounter when they're kind of going through the APR process. And specifically, you can see this first tile here, titled Project Start after Project Exit. This describes situations where a client has been paradoxically enrolled in a project after that project has ended. Of course, we know that this doesn't make sense, so this would be flagged as a data quality error, and any one of these situations would appear within this tile. Kind of going off on that, you can also see a title labeled Date of Birth After Project Start. Of course, clients cannot be enrolled in a project before they are born. That doesn't necessarily make sense. So once again, that would pop up as a data quality error, and all those data quality errors would be contained within the specific tile for you to further review. In addition, we also have these two tiles here, move-in date after project exit and move-in date before project start date. Of course, as we all might be well aware, a client's move-in date should occur within their project enrollment, not necessarily before their project enrollment or after their project enrollment. And finally, we can see this final tile here, titled Households with more than one head of household. Of course, going over our current HMS data standards, households should only have one head of household at a time. If a household has double, triple, or even more than that head of households, that would also be flagged as a data quality error for your team to further review. And finally, we also have this other tile here, annual assessment status, which goes over annual assessments for a specific project or for a specific agency, depending on how you filter this report out. You can see here that this is further subdivided between clients who have an annual assessment that is past due, clients who have an annual assessment that is about to become due, clients who have an annual assessment that was completed out of range, and then finally an annual assessment that was successfully completed. Also, for your further notice, these tiles are interactive, so you can click on them to gain granular information about that specific tile. For the purposes of this example, since we did discuss annual assessments earlier going over APRs, I kind of wanted to dive into that in a little bit more detail. If you do click on the annual assessment tile to kind of load more information, you will gain an additional granular view. For this example, we will go over clients who are within that 30-day window where they should complete their annual assessments. If you do click on that, you can see that it will load an additional pop-up window that looks something like this, where you can kind of see a little bit more granular information about what specific clients have an annual assessment that is about to be due. In this example, we'll be looking at item number 22 for this specific client's project enrollment. You can see that this client has a project start date of November 4th, 2024, which means that their annual assessment was is about to be due within 30 days of that date as of this year. Since this is an interactive tile, you can click on the client's enrollment ID to go directly to either their Clarity profile page or their Clarity program enrollment. But for the purposes of this example, we'll be going to their program enrollment. If you do click on that link, it'll take you to their program enrollment page. And you can see here that fictitious client Tara Wood was enrolled in this project on November 4th, 2024, which means that they have an annual assessment due within 30 days of that date. You can also see that there are two additional clients within this household, Cherry Wood, who was enrolled June 1st, 2025, and Maple Brown, who was also enrolled June 1st, 2025. It is important to note once more that all clients within this household will inherit the head of household's anniversary date, meaning that all clients, regardless of the fact of if they were enrolled in this project on November 4th, 2024, will need to have an annual assessment made for them within 30 days of November 4th, 2025. And I believe that's all for this example, Diana. So I'll pass it off back to you.
Hugo, before we move forward, could you click on one of the members' name to go to the enrollment? And please note, before we go to that screen, under the assessment status, it does have that due date. And then Hugo, if you could go back to the screen you had.
This one right here, Elizabeth?
Yes, go ahead and hover over Cherry Wood name, and to the right side, you can click on the icon to go to their profile and go to their program enrollment. So as Hugo mentioned, while they did join this past June, we still have that assessment due date notice in red at the screen. As Hugo mentioned, they're going to inherit the head of household project start date for annual assessment requirements. So while they are joining the project later, it's going to always match up to the head of household project start dates is when those annual assessments are due. So this is a way to verify, just reviewing the whole profile and kind of keeping an eye out for those warning and reminders on the client profile. Thank you, Hugo.
No problem. I do believe that was all for me, Diana, so I will pass it off back to you. Let me stop sharing.
Okay, thank you, Hugo. Let me go ahead and share my screen again so we can get back to the presentation.
And Diana, before we move forward to the next topic, we did have a question in Q&A, and I did want to answer it verbally, but also encourage everyone to open up the Q&A window to see questions that are coming in from our community. There was a question about about the new data standard field, the sex data and data element, and if there were any mapping based off of the gender field. So just wanted to provide more information that HUD provided guidance to our HMS vendor that the gender field will be set to be not required as of October 1st, 2025. And this will not be mapped to any field because the sex data element is a new data element field. And we do have some resources from the HUD Exchange. So added that link in the Q&A, and it will also be available in our meeting links doc and also our meeting minutes, just so our community has a little additional information and guidance around that new data element. Thank you, Diana.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Go.
Project performance reports. The Rapid Rehousing Project Performance Report will be published in the upcoming weeks. Current and past project performance reports can be found on the Orange County HMIS website by navigating to Reports and then Project Performance Reports. Corrections for the Transitional Housing Project Performance Report draft data will be uploaded into Dropbox this week. In addition, the Project Performance Overview is a helpful document that provides important information regarding the project performance reports, including the thresholds for each goal, as well as our publishing schedule. Data and Performance Management Meeting. This Thursday, November 13th, our team will be hosting another data and performance management meeting. In this specific meeting, we will go over our project performance reports, such as emergency shelter, street outreach, and homeless prevention projects, as well as the Quarter 3 data quality report cards. As always, this meeting information is contained within this slides as well as our meeting minutes, and you can also find the meeting information to join on our OC HMS calendar on our website.
Thank you, Hugo.
And finally, training and resources. Our team has included the updated HMS data standards, as well as the fiscal year 2026 interactive HMS data standards tool, as well as the HMS data collection requirements for transition to fiscal year 2026 HMS data standards. In addition, we also wanted to highlight some helpful community resources, such as the Office of Care Coordination's OCCES Academy website.
You, Hugo. The Elizabeth?
Yeah, thank you, Diana. Good morning, everyone. Just wanted to share an update that our OC HMS privacy form has been updated. So please review the updated form on our website. Our HMS team recommends agencies link directly to the privacy landing page, so it always will reflect the most updated form. But if you wish to link to the form directly, that's completely fine. We do recommend viewing the link quarterly to make sure that it is reflecting the most updated form. Thank you, Diana.
Rachel?
Our HMIS team invites users to complete the HMIS user meeting survey. The feedback from the survey is used for topics at these monthly user meetings. We would greatly appreciate any topics or ideas that you're interested in reviewing in the upcoming monthly meetings. Next slide, please. And then the HMIS team will be out of the office for the Thanksgiving holiday, and this will be Thursday, November 27th and Friday, November 28th. And then we will be back in the office Monday, December 1st to assist.
Thank you, Rachel. This brings us to the Q&A portion of our meeting. If you haven't already done so, please enter your name and your agency's name in the chat box for attendance. And we are opening it up for Q&A for any questions regarding the topics that we have covered during the meeting. If you have additional questions that are not related to any of the meeting topics, we ask that you hold your questions for office hours, which we will be switching to after the Q&A.
And we also want to send a friendly reminder if you're using your agency Zoom account or calling in by phone, please do enter in your agency name and your name so that we can take attendance for your agency to count towards participation. Thank you.
Okay, it doesn't seem like we're getting any questions. So thank you everyone for joining us for our November OCHMIS user meetings. Please have a great day. And our next user meeting is on December 3rd, the first Wednesday of December. Thank you, everyone. And we will be switching over to office hours.